Welcome to AstroTwins Radio, your cosmic GPS for life, love, and everything written in the stars. We're Tali and Ophira Edut, the AstroTwins, here to decode the astrology of the moment and help you navigate your destiny like a pro. Everyone, Tali and Ophi together here in Montecito, California for the week of January 19th to 25th. Yep, it's been quite a start to the year, as we have been talking about reluctantly but responsibly, because the year of the unbridled spirit is off to exactly that. From Minneapolis to Iran to Venezuela to all around Greenland, small towns in USA. So we have to talk about some heavy topics this year and this week. We have to talk about war. We have to talk about civil rights. So Monday is MLK Day, January 19th. And this week might as well be civil rights and the stars, because beginning Monday and following throughout the week, planets are joining the Aquarius Brigade. So last week, Venus, the planet of peace, love, harmony, began the move into Aquarius on January 17th. And we saw people pouring into the streets. Some were met with violence and death, kidnapping, inhumane treatment. Others were forced back into hiding. Others still are continuing to organize. That energy is just going to keep picking up this week. On Monday, we have the sun moving into Aquarius. Aquarius is a sign of civil rights. It's a sign of the humanitarian. It's a sign of unity and togetherness. We have Mercury, the planet of data and communication, also heading into Aquarius on Tuesday until February 6th. The sun is there until February 18th. And then Friday, Mars joins the Aquarius Brigade, heading there until March the 2nd. So that's the longest time. But basically, between January 20th and February 6th, we will have 5 heavenly bodies in there. We do have a full moon in Leo on February 1st, but 5 heavenly bodies in Aquarius. It starts on MLK Day. What will that bring? I mean, Aquarius is the sign of community, groups. It's a sign of power to the people. On the side of humanity, which Aquarius does rule, we will definitely be seeing more and more protests. We're going to see people really, I think, mobilizing with new solutions for how to communicate through underground networks, as we see in Iran, which is terrifying. Protesters came out, many of them emboldened by what they saw as a promise from Donald Trump that he would support them if they came out. So very typical kind of Gemini stereotype of talking out of both sides of your mouth, saying you support protesters overseas, but, want to pull the Insurrection Act or threaten to when they're on your own home soil. So, and also to say help is on the way, and then the next day say, oh, the Ayatollah is doing a good job there. So people feel like he sent them out like lambs to slaughter. 5,000 were killed. Now public executions are being threatened in Iran, and that's not even on our own home turf. Now there are 1,500 active troops waiting to be potentially sent to Minnesota if Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, which gives him more unchecked power to use the military at his own behest. So what can we expect this week? And it's not looking so bright and sunny, and we're going to get into that in a minute.
Well, that brings us to kind of the shadow side of
I was going to
Aquarius
say technology, surveillance,
with Pluto in Aquarius until 2044 and us being at the beginning of it basically. It's been in and out since 2023, March 2023, but settled in for the long haul November 2024. So the early era of a Pluto transit usually shows the shadow.
a lot of
It's like
disruption,
coughing up
unrest.
all the things that have been sort of suppressed. And Aquarius energy can be as easily associated with protesters and crowds as it can be with people being mobilized to join ICE with propaganda or so any kind of group.
Populism,
Yeah, there's no
fringe
good or
group.
bad in any zodiac sign. There's a spectrum of expression. So we're seeing all of that happening play out before us.
So last week when Venus and Pluto were together in Aquarius, which rules technology as well, what really hampered the efforts of the brave Iranian protesters was that the internet was shut off. So they weren't able to connect, to mobilize, to communicate with the outside world. And, there was a Verizon shut off here in the United States, and people were curious and wondering and asking, I think rightly so, is this a warm up for the US to attempt to also shut off mobile service? And, Elon Musk and his Starlink satellites have a lot of power over our internet
Well, the
and
founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, has created a way for people to stay connected without their mobile carriers.
is it in beta or is it actually out yet?
I think people are using it already. I'd have to check, but that is something we can certainly expect to see more of in this Aquarian time. How do we stay connected when our devices are potentially turning more and more into opportunities for surveillance
Control.
with each iOS update on my computer and my phone and each invitation to use the AI tools, which I always do
And the
set up
location
later.
tracking that's just automatically turned on as
And I've
well.
never been like that kind of, I've never been the sort of paranoid kind of, at least I used to think of it that way. It's like, oh, come on, they know everything about me anyway. But now in the world we're living in, it's like, I think I'll pass on that. Not that they don't already know everything about me. I've got clear, I mean, who
Well,
knows?
I've no, I mean, I checked with Clear. I'm like, is this connected to Palantir? And so far, no. But I did notice that since that last iOS update, that people's location shows up when they send a text message. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I got to turn that off on my phone. And there was another update last night. I didn't even
Yeah.
realize was happening. It's like, these Pluto is that sneaky manipulative force. And in Aquarius, our tech is truly being messed with. I read an article about Switzerland and how they are doing AI in this pretty amazing way. They're actually using it in a kind of a permaculture way where they're not stealing and siphoning citizens' data, and they're using the heat produced from the machines to warm people's houses in a sustainable way. So, like, oh,
I mean,
wow,
that is
smart
how
engineering.
technology was intended. I go back to this is something I talked about last year, almost a year ago on our podcast. I started rereading Dolores Cannon's Three Waves of Volunteers
Yeah.
because she talks about the abuse of nuclear power from a spiritual perspective that happened when Uranus was last in Gemini from 1941 to 49. Let's pause a minute and talk about Uranus because Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and it's very significant right now too. It is ending its 8-year run through Taurus. It's backed into Taurus for its final run. It's at 27 degrees right now. So, number one, 27 degrees. Uranus was last at 27 degrees, literally
Of
almost to the
Taurus.
minute of Taurus. during the attack on Pearl
when
Harbor.
which brought the United States into World War II. So that's why we said we have to talk about wars. We don't want to talk about wars, but we have to talk about war because Saturn and Neptune, we've talked about this every week, are going to meet at 0 degrees Aries on February 20th. Aries is the sign of war, it is the sign of combat, it is the sign of the authoritarian autocrat gone wild, gone rogue, which we're absolutely seeing happen in this country that we live in here, the United States. Leaders are preparing for war around the globe now. Europe,
Look at Greenland. There are, European troops. Trump is threatening to put tariffs. Now, so what's come out this past week is that all these tech oligarchs have been creating a fund for all the rare earth minerals that they want to mine for AI and tech supremacy from Greenland,
batteries.
everything that and so Trump is now threatening tariffs on European companies that will go up 10%, I think, on February 1st, 25% on June 1st, until it's basically blackmailing them until Greenland is put up for sale to the United States. So, I mean, this kind of
This Plutonian behavior, and it's very, one thing about that Uranus back in Taurus, it's in fall there, but Taurus rules any,
earth
earth
resources, like
resource and
mine. It's those land grabs, those resource grabs. And you mentioned Holly Algol, which is a fixed star, also known as the demon star. Not to go there.
but it's a 26 fixed stars are stars that move so slowly that they stay at 1 degree for, you know, decades and decades. So Algol is at 26 degrees. And when any of
Taurus,
Taurus,
Taurus.
and we have been, it's gotten hit quite a few times with transiting planets at 25 to 27 degrees Taurus in recent years. Jupiter, the North Node, but the fact that that's happening right now and we're in this very precarious place, it feels like we're already basically in World War III or lining up for it. Now, Aquarius ruling alliances and all this pack of 5 planets there, we're seeing shifting alliances. Canada, Mark Carney from Canada went to Beijing and is now in trade deals with China. So there's new alliances
I think
forming.
we've been predicting this since our 2024 book when Jupiter went into Gemini. We said there'd be surprising new global alliances coming out. I don't want to see that. I mean, NATO was also created, I believe, it was either right at the end of Uranus and Gemini when it first went into Cancer, but I think it was during Uranus and Gemini in the 1940s. So even NATO is having a return. You know, we
World War II was happened, the Holocaust, everything. The Nazis rose to power while Uranus was in Taurus.
Mhm.
World War II and the Holocaust occurred while Uranus was in Gemini, and we're seeing the ICE Gestapo style tactics out there asking for papers, racially profiling. They're
Kidnapping, raping, just dragging people through the streets, like
out of their cars,
demanding
killing people.
papers. Like I literally haven't heard of anything like that in a Western society since reading stories of the Holocaust and hearing from our family members and that sort of thing
You
in the
just don't need a
1940s.
yellow star now. You just need to have skin that's darker than, lily white. And
They're even arresting indigenous people in Minneapolis. That's the most, I mean,
right, the truest Americans there are. There were three, I think, or more members. I forgot which tribe that have been, and the elders and council are fighting and trying to find them. And they went into the detention center and only found one of the people. So for all we know, they could have sent them to Venezuela. A plane went to Venezuela. So
Oh
You know,
my God.
we have Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela,
She's a Taurus,
she's
actually, too. I think
wow.
she's like a late
She
Taurus,
could
too.
be
So
she could be an Al
I feel like she
Gold
might be
Taurus.
May 18th. I think she's like, yeah,
So
close to
she's
that.
got Uranus over her sun right now, which can give people this real erratic, frightening energy. We also have to talk about Civil War because there's another signature happening right now. When the Civil War began with the Battle of Fort Sumter on April 12th, 1861, Neptune was at 29 degrees Pisces. Now, Neptune's a slow-moving outer planet. It moved into Aries, 0 degrees Aries, 2 days later, 2 days after the Civil War began on April 14th. So we're having that same very rare transit occur on January, right now.
Yeah,
Neptune's at 29 degrees of Pisces, and it'll be at 0 degrees Aries on January 26th.
that'll be what we'll be talking about next week. Now, last week I mentioned we looked at the chart of Minnesota. Minnesota was founded when Uranus was in Taurus and Neptune was in Pisces, the last time that happened together. And the North Node was also in Pisces. All three of those things are happening now, extremely rare. And
It
so,
is rare that they would all be
yeah,
lining up, and that is what astrologers look at. We look at those cycles, we look at those returns, as we call them.
patterns.
Astrology, historical astrology, and when we write the almanac or the trend report, as we've called it in our book every year, we really radar in. We go back multiple cycles, and it's been alarming over the last couple of years, knowing that we're moving into these war signatures. However, I do want to also underscore the fact that after the war came great reform. So war, things came to a head during the Civil War, but out of that, slavery was abolished. Women's rights started to pick up speed. We had robber barons and all kinds of other unfortunate things as
Tech
well.
bros of the Second
Yeah,
Industrial
some of the
Revolution.
1%er wealth really began then too with the railroads, the Rockefellers, Vanderbilts,
Well,
J.P. Morgan.
honestly, like it all, like this country was created in this spirit of insurrection. In 1607, the first, basically a bunch of finance bros came looking for gold to Jamestown and just basically began stealing from the Native Americans. First, they learned how to grow tobacco and then created an entire industry that sending tobacco back to England and, of course, started taking over land. Then, about 10 years later, the first slaves, and then later, the Puritans came to Massachusetts and they came with their religious zealotry justifying killing indigenous people because they believed it was God's will. So this is also what's very scary. The foundation of this country was much like the same zealotry that we see in Iran that we're so supposedly so against, the belief that your religious convictions give you a right to kill, steal, and basically flagrantly disobey the Ten Commandments that are your main code for the
Well, Christian nationalism is doing that here. We're seeing it with our own culture in Israel, with, settlers and the atrocities happening in Gaza, and just
in the
using
name of
religion in the
nationalism.
name of religious nationalism. The very fundamental reason for religion is is completely being dismantled. And it doesn't it's about power, it's about greed, it's the opposite of the message of Christ, the message of Abraham, the message of Ishmael. It's the opposite of that. And it's, you know, who are, why we put so much weight on these mythic figures as if they are the law of the land. It's sort of the way people use astrology that I don't like. It's like because my moon is in Scorpio, I must be like that. Instead of using these as metaphors and archetypes and symbols and guides and learning to tap into, like we have, I believe, a God force, a divine force inside of us. And we're so disconnected from it and being controlled by fear. And I think people like Stephen Miller and the, evil geniuses who are indeed organized in the Heritage Foundation in Silicon Valley. They know what they're doing and they have a strategy. They're not just running out in the street. And in fact, what I think all these Aquarian planets are gonna hopefully do is, all due respect for protesting, it has to happen, but is it really making a difference right now, or is it just sending people out like with governments with the Saturn and Neptune and Aries? Saturn moves into Aries on February 13th, so close though, and they'll be together in Aries for 2 years. Governments are willing to turn their military on their people. Then what do you have? You don't have a democracy anymore. You don't have a safe space. You don't have freedom of speech. And, so what do we need to do? What is the new way of uniting and
And that might
without
be
giving up?
something that emerges. I do see, well, this is one thing that I really noticed that I wanted to say, especially as Saturn and Neptune go into Aries. Aries is bravery in its highest form, bravery. Aries is the soldier. Saturn is the veteran, the elder soldier.
Hmm.
Neptune is compassion. And you know who have been the unsung social media heroes that I never thought I would be following? Are veterans, a lot of combat veterans. There's Chris and Dave. They're both Kris and Dave. They're a couple. They actually bought a home in Detroit. They're
Mm.
extremely progressive combat veterans, retired, who are doing incredible work. Jolly Ginger.
Jolly good ginger.
Yeah,
I think
Jolly Good Ginger.
love
Yeah, he
him.
even
Yeah.
speaks fluent Korean, it turns out, and was like speaking to a Korean news outlet. Just and a few others I'm sure that I don't even know about. Like
They
they are the
understand. Well,
ones like more
Mark
than
Kelly
yeah,
too.
Mark Kelly, who's shockingly also an
An
elected
astronaut, a
official.
combat, a decorated veteran.
What's
He's,
happening is that elected officials are not speaking up because it's damned if they do, damned if they don't. They don't want to lose the midterms and lose their seat and the possibility. So some of them are like seemingly being quiet now. Well, Alyssa Slotkin is not. She's a veteran. Um, it's just a damned if they do, damned if
and
they don't.
neither
But
are
these
Tim Walz and Jacob Fry.
yeah, but
Although they're
the
being investigated by the DOJ now. It's like the
it's a
weaponizing.
playbook. It's just like of course they are, but um the veterans who are not elected officials and are public servants have so much knowledge and some of them have so much integrity and they are bravely speaking out on social media and I'm finding that some of them are really helping me understand. They're giving advice on what to do. They're like, we have seen this. We've gone into countries under authoritarian rule and seen what happens in the population with the civilians. And they're giving Americans tips on what to do. And I'm fine, we'll share about that, but I'm finding that to be extremely enlightening and proactive and practical, and some of the most practical advice I've been able to find through social media yet. So,
People are exploring all kinds of things. Register as a Republican and then get a progressive person to run under the Republican ticket. Like just get in there and disrupt their whole party. If you live in a red state where there's no chance, it's going to take those kinds of Aquarian, that innovative thinking, because the old ways aren't working. That's the thing with Pluto being an Aquarius. Like marches are sure they make a statement and they're important. So don't get me wrong. I'm not
No, we
saying
need to
anything,
continue doing that, but that's
but
more of
there
the long
but
game.
there's I think what do you do from there that like it's not seeming to change any minds, any laws, like civil disobedience.
Well,
We have to
peaceful
withhold our
protesters are
taxes,
being,
honestly, which Pluto, I mean,
yeah.
Pluto rules wealth, and I think Uranus and Gemini, when it goes in there, April 25th, like people like the citizen, the power of the average citizen is in the wealth that we provide. They don't have our tax dollars. Speaking of which, Trump is also has taken $500 billion, look it up, it's true, from, or what he claims, from Venezuelan oil sales and put it in a bank account in Qatar. So it can't be regulated. Supposedly, it's like that's how they can give the money back to Venezuela because Venezuela is like the persona non grata in places, but I don't buy it for a minute. It feels like another one of his wealth grifts. We have to talk about two Libras as well who are on the shit list this week. Gavin Newsom and Maria Corina Machado,
Hmm.
both Libras.
Is that the Venus-Pluto conjunction rolling itself out? So Venus is the ruler of Libra and Pluto is the shadow. So they dipped into their shadows. Yeah.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom had conservative podcaster Ben Shapiro on as a guest on his podcast and was basically not condemning the killing of Renee Nicole Good and supporting
It's the
seemingly.
worst side of Libra, the flip-flopping, like whose side are you on, equivocating. Like he had Charlie Kirk, who was also a Libra, on too, and was like broing down with him a little bit. It's like, no, no, no. You have those people on, but then use your platform to ask them the hard-hitting questions. Don't try to like butter them up and
And I think he
suck
was
up to
also
them.
not willing to say that you know, that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. So he lost a ton of support from the left and
It's
the
just plain
party
old
that he's
stupid.
trying to win over. He just like tanked that right there. And also he's been like trying to persuade billionaires to stay in California for the economy. And look, understandably so on some levels, he has to make certain deals, but
You
he
don't have to
lost,
platform
yeah,
just
platforming a
the
right wing, just like,
troll.
demagogue troll is terrible. And then Maria Corina Machado, you probably already have seen many times over that she came back and presented Trump her Nobel Peace Prize. Now,
Which we
some might
technically
say,
can't even do according to the committee, but it doesn't even matter.
no,
We did it.
she did it, and some might say, oh, she cares so much about, her country that she would do that. But like, she looks weak. She looks like she's kissing his ass. And that's not how you get respect or anything with this dude. He's firmly in bed with Delcy Rodriguez, who's gonna go along with his grifts. Like, what? Like, you
She's
lost
basically
support.
pulling from his playbook of bribery. I mean, that's what everyone does. Sycophantically, let me get into the winter White House. I mean, if you look at the Mar-a-Lago face alone, like what pe these insane masks, but they're
Oh,
not masks. Like people are altering their appearances to look like they belong to his cult. It really is like a bad sci-fi movie. And I mean,
well, maybe Lara Trump will perform at the Turning Point
I think
USA
she is, isn't she?
at the Super
Leaked
Bowl
some like
halftime show. What a joke.
horrifying footage of her,
Or singing.
her singing and her dance, like her video. It's like her in like conservative, on the Hill, Washington, like suit, but like short skirt, showing off her legs and heels, like trying to do this dance with like three black men. I don't know if they were like her dance instructor, choreographers, or if they're also on the song, which is, of course, like insanely hypocritical, but just it's like, what is happening here? Her
What's
auto-tuned song and her like inability to dance, and they're trying to coach her on some
It's the
choreography.
delusion of MAGA. They think they can buy anything and everything, including people's opinion of them. They have to live in this delusional spell that they're interesting or cool or powerful, but they can't
Make
get
America hot
anything. They
again.
can't get anything without using force and manipulation and
Stealing, lying, cheating, blackmailing,
we're
being
in the Algol
transactional.
shadow of it. We're in the demon star right now. We have to just, it's like this is a moment. What it's like no one wants to live through these moments in history, but these are the moments where greatest change and growth in humanity does spring forth when everything's out there, when everything's falling apart. These systems that we have gotten so used to aren't serving so many people. And,
It was always there.
they've never served a large swath of the population. They've served white Christians or people who ally with them for a while, but they certainly have the system has always been broken.
Democracy was invented by a group of white men for white men, not even for women.
That's why we have amendments, but they're constantly being challenged. It's hard. It's devastating to watch the huge step backwards when you're hope seemingly to, people were starting to gain visibility, voice, the whole idea that you have to apologize for being white. It's like white America couldn't even handle sharing visibility with trans, LGBTQ, BIPOC communities, like stepping back for a minute to let other, it was no, you didn't have to
Wasn't even
apologize. You didn't have
stepping back, was just like step aside and make
platforming.
room. Like, have you
Right.
ever been in a circle of chairs and more people come in? You just push your chair back and widen the circle. But that to these people
Is a
constitutes
threat.
a threat. It's like if you are visible, I become less visible. Instead of like we can all be visible together and
Like
support
Stephen
each other.
Miller's high school videos are circulating of what a little mini fascist he was. But I think about him as this nerdy kid who was probably picked on and like learned how to puff himself up and use this aggression. Like
I mean, I
the
remember
fear is
kids
that
like that.
the fear is that someone is going to use your horrible tactics back on you. But that isn't even people who have experienced and been on the receiving end of all of the isms just want to live a full, happy, joyful, peaceful life. They're not
Free,
trying to come and
safe.
be sociopaths again. It's
I
like
mean, I can remember and honestly, we have to wa monitor kids because their brains are still developing and what happens, my daughter's in high school, like there is rhetoric. It's like what she tells me some of the stuff that some of her classmates talk about. It's like nothing has changed. What are they getting from their parents? Their parents are my age. We know better. We are supposed to know better. And they're still passing on hate to these kids. I mean, there's that famous poem about like, first they came for this group, but I didn't do anything because I wasn't part of that group, and so on. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to help me because I hadn't supported anyone else. That's me paraphrasing. Like we all need to, if you're listening to this, you're not one of those people. So you're probably like us, just like what can we do to actually make change? But we gotta play the long game as well. So, I mean, This week we have two Cazimis, so it's going to be a very illuminating week. It's super Aquarius time. It's time to come to band together. It's time to focus on what unites instead of divides us. So, as horrible as it is to see what's happening in Minneapolis, and I did live in Minnesota for 5 months and went to the Twin Cities, and was always super impressed by the international diversity there too, cultural as well. So, you know, they are going to be if you're in Minneapolis, we are standing with you, and in the Twin Cities in
Yeah.
Minnesota, we,
Thank you. Thank you for your service, I have to
yeah,
say.
thank you for showing the rest of us what we may need to do. Um, you're going to be providing leadership for us. So it's going to be an illuminating week. On Wednesday, we have a Cazimi, which is when one of the planets unites exactly with the sun and is in the heart of the sun. So we have the sun and Mercury, which is communication in
And that's a
on
day that I am a
Wednesday.
little bit worried that Verizon or our phone, there could be some outages, Mercury ruling our mobile devices. There could be, so definitely if you're, I'm gonna check.
Shut off those location services before Wednesday. Could
Yeah.
also be when we really get some insight from people about how to stay in communication without
Yeah.
that. On Friday, the Sun and Pluto, this happens once a year, they come together. The Pluto Cazimi, that is usually a very intense day. We've experienced it in Capricorn for many years. So now it's in
We had
Aquarius.
it in Aquarius last 2
Yeah.
years though,
Yeah,
actually.
but I
So
just always remember it in Capricorn
the
being a
sun
day.
illuminates, Pluto hides.
Yeah.
So what is going to be buried in the vault? What under, I think I'm very, that's a day that is scary in terms of just like the
And everyone keeps
religious
reminding us about
fervor,
the
iron
Epstein
fist.
files. I don't know if it's true yet. I saw it, but I believe that there was a vote by the DOJ at night, last night, that they don't have to release the files or something. I mean, it's just, I don't even know what to believe anymore. It's just like,
Mercury and Pluto will sync up on Thursday, so there expect a lot of leaks this week as
mhm.
well, but also double check them. I think there's going to be deep fakes and manipulation of the media. Like and I don't even want to sound like this person, but a lot of the mainstream media has gone. I mean, big media is advertiser controlled. So another shout out also to all the podcasters, all the people making social media posts that have been keeping us informed. Monty Mater, Don Lemon, Joyanne Reed, the I've Had It podcast, the Midas Touch. Those are ones,
Democracy Now, Courier Newsroom, those are all great ones.
yeah, but it's so, ground news is one that people are using a service where they actually show the headlines from both red and blue media, conservative and liberal media, so that you can get a more, like, you can see what people are and aren't reporting on. So that's a service.
One thing our friend in Minneapolis told us is that the DHS or ICE or whoever is doing it is sending their own social media influencers and commenters to the protests, trying to agitate the crowd and then film it so that it looks like the crowds are insurrectionists. So with, Mercury and the sun illuminating Pluto's shadowy secrets and agendas, be careful what you share as well, because I don't, Pluto is nefarious. Pluto is calculating and kind of can sneak up from behind or underground. So as always, stay safe as
And
well.
maybe, just really find that community. There's a lot of indivisible groups that are cropping up around that are a place where people are joining and getting good guidance. Black Panthers are reorganizing again too. I mean, there's like,
Interestingly, the Black Panthers were founded during the year of the Fire Horse, 1966. We're
right, right,
moving
right.
into it. Kwanzaa was first celebrated in 1966. So a lot of revolutionary things happened then. The Beatles put their album Revolver out, and then they were canceled by a lot of religious nationalists because John Lennon said something about them being bigger than Jesus or more popular
That's
than
right.
Jesus. So that fervor in the Fire Horse year that we're coming up on a month from now, February 17th, is already underway. So let's talk about what we're doing, maybe that's positive in any way, or how we can guide you. You know, we do have our 2026 horoscope book, which maps out the whole year. You can use that to guide yourself through these phases to understand what's happened in prior historical times and what's happening now and how those tie together, but what's different about them. Um, so we're going to have a number of events. If you go to astrostyle.com/events, we're just here in California at Godmother's Books. We have upcoming workshops throughout January and
And you
February.
can watch our talk at Godmother's on their YouTube. So we'll put
Yeah,
that in the show notes.
yeah,
It was
for
a really
sure.
great Q&A. We did vision boarding because we still need to create a vision. It's still very important. Aquarius is a sign of the visionary too. The Capricorn energy is like the system.
And our
And
Become Your Own Astrologer course. We're
talking about our own
almost a month.
community.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
just about a month away from our third annual. We do it once a year, 8-week course, mastermind, where you learn to read birth charts. That can be a really invaluable tool for many people.
Well, yeah, if you're looking for a community of fellow astro lovers, and it doesn't matter what level of experience, you might only know your sun sign, or you might be someone who's really into reading charts and wants to understand how to do it with precision, with some guidance, with support, and get a certificate of completion, a certification from us. This is one of our favorite things that we do, and our community, a lot of people actually come back and study a couple years in a row to just keep building their skills. But it's an 8-week course. It's actually a 16 week if you do our level two, our oracle. So astrostyle.com/BYOA, which is short for Become Your Own Astrologer. Planets, signs, houses, the aspects. We cover all of that in the
Call it the
first 8 weeks.
four-part puzzle. Yeah, you can, and we will be doing some free introductory webinars throughout February as well,
So you can
and
come check it out.
our annual vision boarding event. But go ahead and already check it out. Join us because seating is limited. You can read all about what you're going to learn in the course at astrostyle.com/BYOA and sign up if you're called to
That has
because
gotten me
we already have.
through 2024 election year. I mean, like last year, just meeting. We meet weekly. The class is on Saturdays, 12 to 2 Eastern or 9 to 11 on the West Coast, which I get up early for. And then we have a weekly practice lab on Wednesdays. But just being able to gather with the community to look at where the planets are. We did that on our Wednesdays. A lot of times we practiced with looking at the United States chart or our charts and coping with change throughout has been even for us as the instructors has been super supportive. And yes, we teach it ourselves. So you'll be hanging out with us.
Live on
Yeah.
Zoom. It's
I'm
recorded. We have a whole hub so you can watch the replays and you have 1 year access to all the lessons. If there's a certification option, it's an option, but we do have now certified coaches some of whom will be coming back and coaching in the program too. So check that out. We're going to talk more about that. But listen, this week, really stay safe. Try to tap into that higher vibration of unity and humanity of Aquarius, however you can. We need
community
to stay healthy.
visualizations, community meditations, like get together with people that you love and care about and share your vision and talk about things, discuss have salon style things, figure out how to make community, support people in your community, form networks, check out groups like Indivisible.
Mutual aid societies are a thing.
We are the ones we've been waiting for. That was the quote from June Jordan that we basically is kind of our mantra for the year. It's a 1 year and there's all this novelty this year. And it's like, maybe no one's coming, maybe someone's coming, but we can't live
We
like
can
that.
show up for each other. I mean, it's no coincidence that, I mean, it is a coincidence, but it's a divine serendipity that the super Aquarius cycle begins right with MLK Day and week. And even though, the administration is flagrantly disrespecting and canceling celebrations and national park, free admission and all the things that have been done because of their anti-woke BS. Like, just we got to rise above that. You can celebrate any way you want. And I mean, Martin Luther King had so many amazing quotes, so many things that he said. And,
Speeches
one
and
of my favorite
efforts.
quotes from him is that love is the only force capable of turning an enemy into a friend. And nothing has been harder to do than stay in a space of love for people who are dehumanizing you. So, and I'm not even suggesting that you have to, but there are
What
people
were
who are
Renee
getting
Good's what were
unbrainwashed.
Renee Good's last words to the I
Jonathan Roth.
yeah, I was like, dude, I'm not even mad at you, Like that just gives me chills whenever I think about it. If there is something that is uplifting to watch this week, it's Bad Bunny's Super Bowl ad where he's like
Yeah.
dancing. He starts dancing with like kind of a traditional Latin dancer in a red dress, and then it moves into like a older woman and then a man and then different groups of people who are like from all backgrounds just dancing with him to a song, and it's just like whew, needed that. It
It's
just
always the artists and musicians. I think we predicted like new protest anthems would be written a couple years ago, and like I think that we're on our way to that again
probably
in
this week too.
2026. So yeah, what would we do without Bad Bunny, the unlikely, the
Pisces.
combat veterans, Bad Bunny, all these
I think he's
unlikely.
finishing his Saturn return to I think his Saturn in Pisces, and he is a
Wow.
Pisces. So and the Super Bowl is happening like
February 8th, I think.
yeah, I think so. So it's like right before Saturn leaves his sign. So thank you, Bad Bunny, for giving us something uplifting to watch. And, here's hoping that the Aquarius planets unite us and spark. But, civil rights movements can be bloody and fierce and but also ultimately, I think I want to be like Anne Frank, a Gemini who never stopped believing in the fundamental good of humans. And we've seen people with our own eyes
People
transform
deactivate
and
from
wake
cults.
and
People
wake
do.
up and
Yeah,
yeah.
woke, awake. We've never needed it more. So may this bring an awakening and stay safe, stay connected, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to Astro Twins Radio. If today's episode gave you an aha moment, we'd be over the moon if you left us a 5-star review. It helps fellow astrology lovers find us. And make sure to hit subscribe and follow us on iTunes and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Want the full visual experience? You can also watch the video version on our YouTube at AstroTwins-TV. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at AstroTwins and head over to astrostyle.com to read your free daily, weekly, and monthly horoscope that we write for you with love. Until next time, move with intention and let the universe meet you there.